Afternoon, committee members, members of the public. The live streaming is not actually working at the moment, but that will be updated onto YouTube at a later date. So I'll start this meeting at 2:05. And firstly, I'd like to ask the Vice Chairman to read out the fire safety notice. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. The building fire alarm signal is a continuous two-tone alarm. On hearing the evacuation alarm, leave the building by the nearest marked exit route, follow the green signs to the assembly point, large staff car park opposite the entrance to the building. Anyone who cannot use the stairs will be helped by officers present after other people have left. Do not return to the building until it is safe to do so by any authorised officer. The whole of the council site is a no smoking area. Mobile phones must be switched to silent, please.
Thank you. By way of introductions, my name is Councillor Dick Sweatman and I'm chairing this meeting. To my right is Mr. Steve Ashdown, Team Leader for Major Development and Enforcement. To his right is Mrs. Susan Dudley, Senior Planning Officer. And we have Aidan over there of Member Services doing the technical bit. To my left is my Vice Chair, Councillor Bruce Forbes. To his left is Paula Slim, the Legal Officer. And in the corner is Alison from Member Services, that is very kindly taking the minutes for us today. I'll move on to item 1 on the agenda, to receive apologies for absence. I have one, and that is Councillor Peacock. Item 2 is to receive declarations of interest from members in respect of any matter on the agenda. Do I have any? Vice Chair.
On item 6, my district for West Sussex County Council covers Balcombe.
Thank you very much. Item 3 is to confirm the minutes of the previous meeting of the District Planning Committee held on 16th of December 2021. Do I have any comments? I see none, so I'd like to propose those minutes. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Coote. So we have to go to the voting buttons to approve those. I'd like to vote now. Thank you. Those minutes are approved. Thank you. Item 4 on the agenda is to consider any items that the Chairman agrees to take as urgent business. I have none. And we go to the first item on the agenda, which is DM/20/0886, and that is the land east of Kingsway, Burgess Hill. I'd like to hand over to Mrs. Susan Dudley to take us through this application, please.
Thank you, Chair. The application seeks full planning permission for 237 dwellings, 30% of which would be affordable, with associated informal open space, SUDS attenuation features and a locally equipped play area. The proposal is part of a wider development of the site, which was granted outline consent in 2012 for 480 units, with phases 1, 2 and 3A already built and occupied. And phase 3B is at an advanced stage of construction with some units already occupied. Therefore, while the application is for 237 dwellings, a significant proportion of these have already in principle been agreed under the earlier outline consent, and the current application results in an additional 33 units over and above the 480 units established by the outline consent, which gives a total of 513 units on the site overall. The previous phases of the development have been dealt with as reserve matters. However, the time limit for the submission of reserve matters has now lapsed, so therefore this final phase required a full planning application. In addition, a planning application was also required as the current application proposes an additional 33 units, thereby exceeding the 480 units granted by the outline consent. And just before I start the presentation, I just draw members' attention to the update sheet, and that does recommend 2 additional conditions. One is for the detail and location and specification of any PV panels, should they be required in the future. And the second is for details of the locally equipped area of play, including equipment and the management area. Right, slide 1 shows the actual location of the site, which is approximately 31.5 hectares, with access off Kingsway, and is in the built-up area of Burgess Hill. It previously comprised of a significant number of trees, and to the southwest is a railway line, and to the east, the largely open countryside of Ditchling Common Country Park, with the residential properties of Freckborough Manor and Trendlewood. Just included this aerial photograph because that does show the built-out or under construction phases of the development, and the application site is to the south of the tree line. That's good. I'll just put the mouse on because I haven't got the. I have actually. So actually, yeah. So this is just south of this tree line. This is where the development area is proposed. This gives the layout, and you'll see that it uses the access to the wider site, which is located here. And the dwellings would have a perimeter block arrangement set within the original field patterns. And this enables most of the existing mature hedgerows and trees to be retained. The plan showed that the dwellings are arranged as a mixture of detached and semi-detached and terraced houses. Areas of open space are located here, where there would be a large informal open space. And also to the central area of the site, we have the public open space, which would contain the equipped play area. And then the attenuation pond is sited in the far southeast corner of the site. This next slide just shows the mix of unit types and locations. So the green is the 2-bed units, the orange is the 3-bed, and the red the 4-bed. So you can see they are fairly well evenly distributed throughout the site. This just gives an indication of the story heights, and you'll see that predominantly there are 2-story dwellings. The 1-story are the carports and garages, and then the 3-story is the one flatted development that's located in the site. This shows the location of the affordable units. The yellow dots are the shared ownership, and the blue, the affordable rent. This is the layout within the site. So you have the primary road which links with the northern development and comes through the spine of this development. And then you have the secondary streets, which are the yellow dotted lines, the tertiary streets, the red, and then finally you have private courtyards and driveways, which are shown as blue. This gives the indication of the parking arrangements on the site. The scheme would provide in total 479 allocated parking spaces, which are a mix of garages, carports and parking spaces, along with 73 visitor spaces. So you have the red and green, they're the allocated spaces. The purple are the unallocated, and the orange are the garages, and finally the black is the carports. Moving on to the design. The design would be a mix of house types, along with the subdivision of the site into 2 urban character areas, which would be the urban character area and then the rural character area. The urban area located in the northern section of the site, which adjoins the existing and under construction development to the north, and then the rural area located to the south. This slide just shows a closer view of parts of the urban area and the rural area, so you can just see the contrasting difference. The urban area would be denser and consist of mainly semi-detached and terrace properties with modest front gardens and rear gardens, and the block of flats is located in this part of the urban area. The rural area, by contrast, would be less dense and consists mainly of semi-detached and detached properties with modest gardens again and on-plot parking. This next slide just shows street scenes within the urban area, and the architecture of this development would feature traditional Sussex materials along with some contemporary features such as weatherboarding, dark-coloured window frames with large openings and contemporary style doors. This shows again in detail some street scenes within the rural character area, and again you can see the contrast that they would be typical Sussex vernacular using materials such as tile hanging and red bricks, and the window openings would be smaller and subdivided with panes with more traditional front entrances. And this is just a more detailed drawing of the open space that would contain the equipped play area with an indication of some of the equipment that may be used. You'll see from the report that there were concerns from the police and urban designer about natural surveillance of this, because you only really have a narrow entrance here, and then it's surrounded by very mature trees and dense vegetation. So there is a condition that there would be some crown lifting of these trees, which the arboriculturist has confirmed would be acceptable, and that would be lifted to no more than 3 metres above ground level, just to make the place more usable. We have some CGIs just to show some of the landmark corner plots. This would be located, this is the flatted development, it's obviously 3-storey, located in the urban character area with the timber boarding, large window openings and use of grey frames and modern entrances. This is one of the detached properties, again in the urban character area. It's located here. And again, you've got the large window openings and timber boarding and contemporary entrance. And this is a corner plot within the rural character area. Again, you can see the contrast with the more traditional entrance, tile hanging and red bricks. Finally, some photographs of the site. Obviously, it's just mainly open fields at the moment, surrounded by mature trees and vegetation. This photograph here actually is where the play area would be in the open space, so you can see the reasons why we've asked for some crown lifting, as it would be a very enclosed space otherwise. So, in summary, the principle of development on the site has been established by virtue of the outline consent for 480 dwellings, which has been implemented. And the Kingsway is also a strategic allocation as set out in policy DP8 of the district plan. As the development is also within the built-up area of Burgess Hill, the principle of the additional 33 windfall houses is also accepted under policy DP6. The urban designer has worked closely with the developer on the design of the scheme, and following amendments, the design, layout, mix and scale are now considered acceptable. There'd be no significant harm to the amenity of the surrounding residential occupiers, and the scheme would not cause harm in terms of parking or highway safety. The recommendation is therefore for approval, subject to the completion of a satisfactory Section 1 legal agreement to secure the infrastructure contributions and the affordable housing. Thank you, Chairman. That concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Susan. We go to public speakers. We have 2. The first one is from Glyn Wells, and I have to read this out. It's a letter that she sent. She unfortunately can't be here. So bear with me. I have to slow down because we're not streaming live and Alison's got to take this down. The main concern: the access into the site is from Unicorn Way. It is a long swooping blind bend with cars parking on one side. This will turn this section into a one-car passing system, with having to approach oncoming traffic with nowhere to pull in, causing a huge safety concern for road users. There is also a Unicorn Way cul-de-sac to the right, where turning out of the entrance there will be no view of traffic coming down to the site. This is a huge concern. How will this be addressed? With 280 homes to be built with average of 2 cars per household, that's potential of 560 trips a day in and out of this one road entrance. That is on a vision impaired 1 car width road. I do not see how this is adequate and quite frankly is a huge safety concern. Pedestrians crossing from Unicorn Way cul-de-sac will also find this dangerous. Is there any traffic calming measures likely to be in place in this section of Unicorn Way? At present, there's cobble strips which do not slow cars down at the moment. Cars regularly speed along Unicorn Way and can only see more problems here, with ultimately an accident waiting to happen. Loss of habitat for the already declining wildlife and carbon absorbers. As we know, this site is a naturally created, rewilded area featuring some of the critical habitats to tackle climate change and the like. Mitigating this loss with a few randomly planted trees is not mitigation, especially when they are not managed or planted properly once the site is complete. Flooding. How will this ditch system be connected on the previous site? This was missed, causing potential flooding risk to properties. The land proposed for building is low-lying, groundwater retained with spring flowing through it. There is only one outlet for this water on the corner of the estate. How will this be managed? Putting in suds is not the answer, especially when installed with incorrect trash screens on outlets that are not maintained nor managed in their control function. Yet again, a mitigation measure put in but not managed nor fit for purpose. Sewer system. Will this site have its own pumping station, as one on the existing site struggles to cope with the stormwater and sewerage? Now, let alone with 280 more homes, how will this be addressed? Play park facilities in the new site, will these be for all ages? Having equipment a wide range of children can use. There seems to be a lack of imagination and tradition, which results in a poor play facility, not all weather nor full age range friendly. Yet again, how and who will manage this? Dog waste bins, where will these be placed? At the moment, the only one on this site is right outside the children's play park. Surely a huge health hazard and safety risk. Where will these be? Large paths that cars can fit up. How will this risk be managed? Will there be bollards or a light to prevent vehicles accessing these? As yet again, this is a huge safety concern. Lay-bys, parking bays, are these designated to fit the standard car? At the moment, you can fit 1.5 cars, not 2, or 2.5, not 3. Surely design these to maximise the space. Roads, are these designated for the standard vehicle? It seems some are too tight to bend it narrow, resulting in damage to verges or cars. Can you confirm this is designed correctly to fit emergency vehicles and cars on? Before the site is granted, and I feel the council will need to be clear and monitor the management arrangements of this site. At the moment, that is lacking on many accounts. Public safety risk, flood risk, grounds maintenance, tree safety, all these things get left and forgotten, which ultimately spoils and damages the area and reputation of the council, which should have a duty of care towards its customers. Managing the site under construction, monitoring waste movements, wildlife mitigation and movement, construction standards, which all yet again seem to get left and forgotten, resulting in disappointment and poor housing estate for now and the future. Permissions need to be accountable for that actions now, during and after construction. Now go to our second speaker, Laura Jackson, if you'd like to. And state who you're speaking for, please.
For the applicant, Persimmon Homes, Thames Valley.
Okay, just go through, you do have 3 minutes. The first minute will be timed. When the green light comes on, you start speaking. When the amber light comes on, you have 30 seconds. And then when the red light comes, I will ask you to finish up and round up to your last sentence. Thank you.
Good afternoon, councillors. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak this afternoon. As I've just said, my name is Laura Jackson and I'm a Senior Planning Manager for Persimmon Homes, Thames Valley.
Can you put the microphone closer, maybe?
Okay. Okay, I'll try again. So my name is Laura Jackson and I'm a Senior Planning Manager for Persimmon Homes, Thames Valley. I've been working closely with your officers to ensure that our development proposals for Kingsway are acceptable in planning and design terms. The principle of development has been established by virtue of the outline consent that was granted in 2013 for 480 dwellings. To date, we have delivered out phases 1, 2, 3A and 3B, and 3B is under construction. The application before you this afternoon is for phase 4 and will enable us to complete the development aspirations for the site in full. As such, we do welcome your officer's recommendation for approval. The proposed development has been the subject of extremely detailed discussions with officers and consultees to ensure that it complies with all relevant planning policy requirements and aspirations of the original outline consent. It is therefore an appropriate form of development for the site. The merits of the proposed development have been clearly set out in the submitted application documentation and your officer's report. However, I would like to reiterate the following points. A carefully considered layout and design approach is proposed that has been supported by the Council's design panel review. As such, the proposed development is sympathetic to its surrounding area. There are no adverse amenity issues that would arise as a result of the proposed development. Important landscape features are retained to ensure that the original field pattern is respected. This ensures that the unique and attractive character that has been established at Kingsway continues through to this last phase of development. A detailed technical submission has been made in relation to engineering matters, and we have provided your drainage and highway officers with highly detailed and comprehensive design which demonstrates acceptable solutions to acknowledged technical standards. The proposals would not result in any significant harm to protected or other species, and any effects arising would be adequately mitigated for. An appropriate range of housing accommodation is proposed, both for market and affordable tenures. The dwellings have been designed to be attractive and relate well to the overall character that has been established at Kingsway. The Section 106 agreement will ensure that all outstanding infrastructure requirements of the outline are carried through, as well as contributions for the additional 33 units. So in summary, it has been demonstrated through the very detailed technical submission that is before you that an appropriate layout and form of development can be achieved on this site. As such, we urge you to support your officer's recommendation for approval.
Thank you very much. Okay, just to remind members that the principle of development on this application has already been established. The reason it's before us today is it's because it's time-lapsed, plus also the addition of an extra 33 units on this site. Taken up from 480 to 513. So I'll open this up to the floor. Are there any questions? Councillor Coote.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I have a number of points that are concerning me. Considering we are dealing with a developer of some note, one or two things surprised me. First of all, there are no grey water tanks, no voltaic tiles, no other means of heating other than the means which are old-fashioned and going out of place. And it surprises me because these houses presumably are going to last for at least 100, 150 years. And we need to be looking at things with a more modern view. I'm also surprised that the design panel were not at all happy with the design. And having seen a little bit of up there, I can understand a little more imagination could be used. And I suppose eventually, when we have saturation of the market and contractors have to sell the product rather than having people queued up waiting for them, we will get some sort of better design. And the final thing that really concerns me, and it's currently in the news at the moment, is the flooding. And it was mentioned in the speech that you've just made, and that is that once you start putting foundations into the ground, and I understand this because I was a member of this worthy profession for some years, you disturb the groundwater. When you disturb the groundwater, water will make its way where it wants to go. And if you put something in its way, it will find another way around it. And so I go back now, I think it must be 10 years, to Grange Road in Crawley Down, where we had exactly the same thing. And it was passed, and the residents have had water problems ever since because the groundwater was not properly addressed. And so I do hope that our water engineer has considered this very well, so that people who put their head in the noose for a mortgage for 25 years don't have a whole load of problems down there. Other than that, I'm quite in favour of the development. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Susan, would you like to take any of those comments up?
First, you mentioned that with no photovoltaic tiles at the moment, but there is a condition which I've said is going to be added on, which is in the update sheet, so that in the future, obviously we're aware that they will have to comply with building regulations, and that they may, they are going to change in 2023, so that's future. So that's what they're not at the moment, because they are going for a fabric first approach. But if they do need them in the future to comply with the more stringent building regs, we have got that condition. In terms of the design, you mentioned the design review panel. Initially, they did have concerns, but the comments from the design review panel are on the original submission, which then went through a couple of amendments, which the urban designer worked quite closely with the applicant, and he's now satisfied with that design. In terms of the drainage, there have been some issues on that site, and our drainage engineer has worked very hard with the developer, and remediation works have recently been carried out in phases 1, 2 and 3. And you'll see there's not actually a condition regarding drainage because very technical details have been put in, and she's satisfied that they will be sufficient to actually take into account the additional houses, which will eventually link up to the drainage system that's already in place.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Bates.
Just pick up on the remark that Councillor Coope mentioned about the heating in these properties. Having spent 4 days without any power, that at least I had gas. But so I just question what people will do when there's all electric. I didn't really obviously want to dwell upon that, but I am happy with the 33 additional homes. I mean, it seems to be standard practice now with large developments, so I mean 33 doesn't seem an awful lot more. The comment about the highways which you read out, I was quickly looking at the comments from 2020 and the current ones from the County Council West Highways. They seem to be satisfied by what's been done in the subsequent time. I have spoken before about access into the larger sites. This is slightly different to what I normally would be speaking about, but somebody else has raised it. So by and large, I would go along with the recommendation to approve this.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bates. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm quite happy with the extra 33 and the general sort of plan, other than one particular thing which I've always been concerned about. On page 29, it does refer that the highways will be designed to adoptable standards, and under the comments from West Sussex County Council Highways on page 63, it does say that the roads will be designed to adoptable standards, but on the bullet point, third bullet point on page 63, there's road adoption. We understand from the planning officer that the internal roads will remain private and not adopted under a Section 38 agreement. I'm always unhappy about this because as part of the council tax, a resident will pay, part of that council tax covers sort of highways and road maintenance and road clearance and lighting, yet if it's not adopted, then it has to be done by a management company, which means additional cost to the residents, which seems to me extremely unfair. So I'm not very happy about the fact that these roads are not likely to be adopted, the primary roads within the site. I don't know what the planning officer has to say about the adoption policy on this particular development.
Well, joint answer.
Really just to say, obviously, it's up to the developer whether they put the road up for adoption, but the early phases, 1, 2 and 3, they're not adopted either. So, you know, following on, this won't be adopted, and highways have been informed of that now. And so it's not something we can actually force a developer to do. And in this case, the early phases haven't been adopted. So we weren't really expecting that this phase would be adopted either. All I wanted to say.
Yes, it's not a planning matter for consideration in this application. Councillor Webb.
Thank you, Chairman. An S106 contribution is an integral part of the planning legislation and the planning process. How can the Planning Committee agree to an application without seeing the detail of the S106 agreement? And secondly, the recommendations refer to a satisfactory agreement. So what is considered to be a satisfactory agreement? How was this figure determined? And what comments have been made by the local authority on this proposed contribution?
Thank you. Can I hand that one over to you?
I'm trying to find the page, but the contributions are set out on page 26 of the report, and also it does state there that the section 106 would include contributions, financial contributions, but also would secure the affordable housing. And there are calculations that are made, and they're set out in the SBD that deals with developer contributions. There is in the updated sheet a slight change in the county council ones, and that just takes into account the fact that there's now one more additional affordable unit and one less private, but that does set out what the section 106 would contain. And obviously with this application there's also a wider section 106 which formed part of the original 2012 outline approval.
Thank you. Councillor Band.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got a couple of, 2 or 3 questions in no particular order. The parking provision, we're going up from 480, the proposal is to go from 480 to 513 units, including an element of additional housing, which would commend, and that's a very welcome improvement. The metrics are that we've got 479 spaces for residents, 73 for visitors, which in my maths is 552. But that's parking provision for the 513 dwelling units. Also includes garages, which we all know people don't use for cars. So I take a rule of thumb and go 150 of those spaces are going to be in garages. I've got 400 spaces for 513 dwelling units. That's nowhere near the government or indeed West Sussex County Councils a requirement for a parking provision for a development of that size. In other words, going back to the letter that you read, Chairman, we're going to have cars all over the place and we're going to have effectively another Bolnor if this is approved in terms of parking. It's going to cause arguments between residents. The council will get the blame for this fiasco, quite rightly so. And no good news there. I would actually say that what's being proposed is inadequate in terms of residential amenity in the age that we live now. The LEP, the police indicate that there are issues regarding natural surveillance. Whilst we're building and planning the LEP, would it be possible to actually conjure in provision, if it's needed for the future, for the installation of CCTV? It would be easier to put in and condition it now rather than actually ask for it to be put in later. And, sorry, I'm waffling around. The environmental health report, or protection report, indicates that there are specifically issues, or maybe issues regarding the noise from the railway. The condition requires that there should be that there will be tests and schemes, and I'm referring to page 41, item 15, which says that details of post-installation acoustic testing shall be submitted to and improved in writing by the local planning authority upon request. A, have we requested that? And B, what do the tests indicate and what will the scheme deliver? Please. Thank you very much.
Thank you. On the parking, I think your figures that you're looking at the whole development as a whole. This is just for the 200 phase B, 237.
So in that case, can I ask what the figures are? Thank you.
In terms of the parking, obviously that does comply with West Sussex Highways standards. So that you'll see on page 29, it does say that they're satisfied with the proposed parking and road layout. And they did initially ask for additional information, but there is a parking layout, and so that does comply. So we couldn't ask for more parking because they are complying with the standards. In terms of the noise from the railway, you'll see that environmental health on page 55, they do suggest those soundproof condition and that they're satisfied that additional ventilation, if required, could be addressed through that condition. So obviously the technical information would be put in and that would be required, and then we would reconsult with environmental health on that issue.
Thank you. Does that answer your questions? Thank you. Councillor Eves, you just asked something.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like an answer on the substation question that the member of the public raised, if that's okay. Do we have our own substation here? I regret the lack of renewables. I regret the fact that there's only 20% electric vehicle charging points. I appreciate there'll be ducting for the rest, but that does seem to be short-sighted. And the formal sport allocation of 42,000 is welcome, but one thing we need to appreciate is that there's no sports facilities on the east side of Burgess Hill at all. They're all on the northwest, and that's a real shame. It's too far away. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Majun, I'd take that.
In terms of facilities, there is additional contributions. If you look on page 27, there would be contributions, and the contribution would be 42,201, and that would actually go to Centre for Outdoor Sports and or the Triangle in Burgess Hill. Yeah. What was the other question?
Substation.
There is a new substation. What was the query on the substation? I thought that Was that the, from the resident that you, yeah, I thought that was referring to a pumping station. That was regarding the sewer system. Obviously this is an electricity substation.
Sir Trumbull.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't think we've got anywhere to go on this. There's not a lot of issues that we can look at or argue on. On design, actually, interestingly, I like the urban aspect of design rather than Sussex vernacular. I cringe when I hear the word Sussex vernacular, because frankly, when I look at them, the Sussex vernacular is very little different to York vernacular or Cornish vernacular. We just have little bits added on or taken away. And I abhor those porches which seem to be purchased from B&Q, which are just dropped on the front of the house. So I cringe when I hear that, but we are where we are. It's been agreed by the design review panel, and I guess we have to stick with that. But I do wish that developers could be more imaginative on their design, and I think we show a little more imagination here on the urban design than we do on the rural one. I think I didn't pick up the lady's name, the letter that you read out, Chairman, but she raised the point about management arrangements on this site. We are having issues on one of the sites in my village, Hurstpier Point, with the management arrangements on one, I won't mention which, on one of the sites there. Certain issues do not seem to be coming under the management arrangement. We feel they should, they feel they do not, and those issues are being left undone. I sincerely hope, Chairman, that our planning officers have this knotted up. Otherwise, we ain't going to be doing the residents of this site any favours. It's vitally important that we do know what is managed, what isn't, whose responsibility takes what. We have a leap here. My experience of leaps is that they are little used. And we have this, nothing's going to happen to it, it's going to be there. But I do hope longer term we can look at policy on leaps and be more imaginative about that as a council. Because what we tend to do is virtue signal with leaps in developments which are there because we want to look, or the developer wants to look like a nice, cuddly, friendly developer, and actually they're very little used. I think that money could be better spent. So with those points, Chairman, I would propose that we move to accept this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Trumbull. Councillor LeBain, you want to come back? Is this a new question?
I would like to actually endorse Councillor Trumbull's comments, particularly regarding design, if I may. I'm fed up with old-fashioned developments coming forward, which effectively reinvent the past rather than actually creating a future that's fit for our community. And I think we could do better, and so could the developers in that manner. Thank you.
Okay, your comments are noted on that one. Councillor Coote, is it a new question?
I wanted to boost what Councillor Trumbull has said. It seems we don't have a Sussex vernacular. What about all the beautiful designs there are? The architects here have got very bored and they've just gone bom, 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 bom. We need some imagination. It doesn't have to follow any particular. You look at hoof houses, for instance. That's one thing. And the second thing escaped me. Oh, gosh. No,
Okay.
it's gone.
Well, thank you, Councillor Coote. Obviously, this has been through the design and review panel. There's been a few changes made, and the urban designer's happy. And looking at development personally, I think it's quite a good development. But anyway, Councillor Whittaker, you...
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, interesting comments, and I concur with the road adoption policy, and I think that should be encouraged by this district council. And I appreciate your comments that it's not necessarily a planning issue, but I think it's, and as an informative generally, a principle should be applied, and I think we should make that clear. The management points that I think Glyn Wells that you read out, the note from Glyn Wells, clearly there are some issues, so I concur with that. In terms of design, I actually like this design. I think it's a good layout. There's lots of use of green corridors, green spaces, squares. Much better than the last scheme we had before Christmas on another site where I was critical of that. So I actually like this. In terms of a comment on the design review panel, I recently attended on another scheme of that. Clearly we've got our own design guide here, and the design review panel, which is usually 6 or 7 architects, kind of debate it. But I don't feel that they really take a lead in master planning the scheme. It's obviously led by the applicant. So I think there's some interesting points that maybe we could tweak the system on the DRP system. But overall, I like the design, and I'd like to second the approval of this scheme. Thank you.
Ageing brain.
Okay, I'll take this as the last question on this
Yes,
application.
it's just to come back on the contract, the service contract. I have 2 experiences. My son lives on an estate off Imberhorn Lane, and I won't go into it deeply, but they have had some problems with the road, which the contractor that has been appointed has not addressed. And it's been like that now for 9 to 10 months, because they keep saying it's not their responsibility. So any service contract needs to be very clear in what its objectives are. Plus the fact that I live on an estate where we look after the roads ourselves. We pay £150 a year to look after the roads, and it's all done by a board of directors, of which everybody takes a turn. And that works quite well. But again, the terms of reference are clearly defined, so everybody knows exactly where they are and how much they have to pay. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Coote. Okay, we have a proposer. I'm going to go to the vote now. Do we have a proposer? Councillor Trumbull. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Whittaker. Can we go to the voting buttons now when they come up on your screen? Yes? Green one's for yes, the minus one's for no. Okay. So, now. That's unanimous. That's unanimous. So I go to the recommendations, and it is recommended that the this out first really. It is recommended that the planning permission be approved subject to the completion of the satisfactory S106 legal agreement to secure infrastructure contributions, affordable houses to conditions set in Appendix A. Recommendation B, it's recommended that if the applicants have not completed a satisfactory signed planning obligation by the 24th May 22, then it is recommended that permission be refused at the discretion of the divisional leader for planning and economy for the following reason. The application fails to comply with policy DP20 of the Mid-Sussex District Plan in respect of the infrastructure and affordable housing required to serve the development. Is everyone happy with that? Apologies, I should read that first before we went to the vote. Okay, sorry about that. Can we go to the voting again? My mistake, apologies. That's unanimous, thank you. So, we agreed that one person was going to read it out. Just bear with. Just having a little pause. I'm afraid there was an issue with the public speakers, but we'll just wait till they've got their glass of water and we carry on. Members, if we can get started again, please, if everyone's ready. We go to item 6 on the agenda, and that is DM21/4235, land adjacent to Balcombe House, London Road, Balcombe. And I hand over to Mrs. Joanne Fisher to take us through this application, please.
Chairman, so planning permission is sought for residential development to provide 17 dwellings made up of 1 and 2 bedroom flats and 3 bedroom detached and semi-detached houses with associated landscaping, parking, vehicular access and a village car park. So the site is of an irregular shape. It's outlined in red here, which is going round on my cursor at this point. It's currently with plantation woodlands with trees and vegetation within and on the boundaries of the site. There are residential properties to the southeast and to the south of the site, set back from the road with trees and vegetation screening on the boundaries. To the north is the parkland setting of Balcombe House, which is a Grade 2 listed building. This is screened by trees on the boundaries of the site. The proposed development is almost surrounded by Balcombe Conservation Area. The site is located within the built-up area of Balcombe, as well as within the High Weald area of outstanding natural beauty. The site is allocated within the Balcombe Neighbourhood Plan under Policy 2I for residential development for approximately 14 dwellings and the provision of a public car park. Details of the requirements of this policy is set out on pages 81 and 82 of the report. So a similar application was recently refused by members at the Planning Committee in November 2021, where an application was submitted for 17 dwellings made up of 1 and 2 bedroom flats and 3 and a 4 bedroom property. This was to be the 4 bedroom property with associated landscaping, car parking, vehicular access and a village car park. Members refused the application due to the proposed housing mix with the inclusion of this 4-bed property being contrary to Policy 2I of the Balcombe Neighbourhood Plan, as well as the Section 106 legal agreement in relation to the infrastructure and affordable housing requirements not being completed. Full details of the refusal are set out on page 75 of the report. The application in front of members today seeks to address this reason for refusal through the removal of the 4-bed dwelling and its substitution with a 3-bed dwelling. So this is the block plan of what is in front of us today. Like I've said, it's for 17 dwellings of 1 and 2 bedroom flats in this location with 3-bed dwellings within the rest of the site, as well as a village car park in this location here. The proposal would provide 5 affordable dwellings as part of the scheme, and as part of the proposal, the site would provide a village car park of 10 car parking spaces. The site would have 1 vehicular access off the Haywards Heath Road, serving both the housing and village car park. The proposed layout would allow the surveillance of the car park due to the location of the houses here. The application has been amended through the removal of the 4-bed dwelling and its substitution of a 3-bed dwelling. Plots 14 to 17 are more widely spaced, and plots 15 to 17 have become detached dwellings. The rest of the layout remains as that previously considered. Each property would benefit from off-road parking, with a number of the dwellings of plots 8 to 17 benefiting from garaging. Parking would be to the side of the dwellings, as supported within the Mid-Sussex Design Guide, with the flats having parking opposite in this location here. There would also be, throughout the site, 6 visitor parking spaces, serving the residential element of the site. The proposed layout is considered acceptable and was not a reason for refusal in the consideration of the recent scheme. The allocation policy in the neighbourhood plan requires the existing tree-lined frontage along Haywards Heath Road to be retained and improved. Plans show that the boundary trees and vegetation are to be retained with a planting buffer and enhanced planting provided on the northern boundary of the site here, with the parkland setting of Balcombe House. The impact on ecology and trees are set out on pages 101 to 103 of the report. The majority of trees are to be removed are of low classification, and many being non-native plantation trees. The impact on ecology and trees were considered to be acceptable in the previous scheme, and there are no robust reasons to come to a different view with this scheme. So this plan just shows the location of the conservation area, which is this blue hatched area, and also the red dots are the listed buildings which are in close proximity to the site, which is approximately here. Heritage assets are identified on page 86 of the report, and the impact of each of these heritage assets are considered in turn within this report. It's considered that the proposal would result in less than substantial harm to the designated heritage assets where para 202 of the NPPF applies, where the harm to the designated heritage assets should be weighed against the public benefits. The public benefits of the development are set out on page 93 of the report through the creation of 17 dwellings, including 5 affordable dwellings in a sustainable location. The proposal would result in the provision of a public car park as required by Policy 2 of the Neighbourhood Plan. These benefits are considered to outweigh the harm identified to the designated heritage assets. The impact on the surrounding designated heritage assets were considered acceptable in the consideration of the recently refused scheme, and there are no robust grounds to come to a different conclusion in respect of this. So I'll just briefly go through a number of slides which show the design and floor plans of the properties proposed. Plots 1 to 5 is the affordable housing, which is the flatted development, just for your information. So the proposal provides a traditional design which reflects materials and building styles that are found in other housing in the village and are of relatively modest scale. The variations in the design of the properties would add to the visual interest of the proposed cul-de-sac and would be sensitive to the character of the area. Details of sustainable measures to be incorporated in the development are detailed on pages 99 to 100 of the report. This is a fabric-first approach incorporating passive solar gain, natural daylighting and water efficiency measures. Conditions are suggested in Appendix 1 in relation to each dwelling having covered and secure cycle parking and details on electric charging vehicle points. The Council's urban designer raised no objection to the scheme, and the previous application was not refused in relation to design matters, and it's considered that there are no robust grounds to come to a different reason in relation to this. So this is an indicative street scene from Haywards Heath Road. It's considered that the development would sit comfortably within the site and reflect the general character of the street scene along Haywards Heath Road, whilst retaining the woodland setting and a tree and vegetation screening along the front boundaries. The car parking is to be set within the site with vegetation screening to soften the area of hard surfacing, and it would be seen in context with the adjacent housing proposed as part of the proposed development. The proposal thereby presents a positive relationship with the street and would not adversely affect the character of the area. Suggesting photographs of the site and its relationship. This is from Haywards Heath Road, looking back down towards the school and the mini roundabout. That's within the site, obviously showing the trees, screens, and this is looking from the mini roundabout back up towards the village of Balcombe itself, with the village green there. Photographs of within the site, the dense vegetation boundary on the north. And this is taken from Balcombe House in the Parkland setting, showing the boundary trees on the north of the application site, which is quite dense. So the principle of residential development on this site is established through its allocation in the neighbourhood plan. The matter for consideration is whether the previous reason for refusal in respect of the housing mix has been addressed. Officers consider that the proposal with the development comprising of 1, 2 and 3 bed dwellings and the removal of the 4-bed dwelling meets the requirements of Policy 2I of the Neighbourhood Plan. In addition, the Section 106 is being progressed. The proposal shows that the 17 dwellings and the car park public car park can be suitably accommodated within the site. The proposed layout, design and scale is considered appropriate and would not form an overdevelopment of the site. Officers consider that the proposal will provide a high-quality development which is well laid out with sufficient parking and well-spaced plots. The development is considered to sit comfortably within the site. The district plan and the NPPF seeks proposals to optimise the potential of the site, and the proposed numbers and layout is considered appropriate in this instance. The public benefits in the creation of 17 dwellings, including 5 affordable dwellings in a sustainable location, reflects one of the key objectives of the NPPF. The proposal would result in a number of infrastructure contributions which would be secured through a legal agreement, as well as the formation of a public car park for the village. In addition, in the short term, the proposal would also deliver a number of construction jobs and a number of
and a result of additional spending within the economy once the dwellings are occupied. As such, it's considered that the proposal would result in significant public benefits which would outweigh the identified less than substantial harm to the setting of the conservation area and on the nearby listed buildings, as well as the ecology on the site. Officers consider that in the context of the district and the neighbourhood plan, the proposed development of the site complies with the development plan, and there are no material planning considerations indicating a decision should be made otherwise than in accordance with it. That brings my presentation to an end. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Joanne. We go to our public speaker. And sorry, there was a little bit of confusion as to who was speaking. You're Mr. Lloyd Thompson. Yeah, thank you very much. And you're speaking on behalf of Balcombe Parish Council. Just to run through how the system works, you have 3 minutes. The first minute will be timed. And we have a traffic light system over there. Start speaking once the green light comes on. When the orange light comes on, you have about 30 seconds. And the red light comes on, I will ask you to round up to your nearest sentence. Thank you. I'm allowing you a bit of leeway on this one, actually, because it's a little bit for you to read out.
Through our neighbourhood plan to meet 2 identified needs, a village car park and affordable smaller housing. It is a highly sensitive site adjacent to the village green, and we have 3 issues: overdevelopment, the affordable housing mix, and the village car park. A 2018 application with 17 units was withdrawn because MSDC recommended refusal on the grounds of overdevelopment of the site. The landowner has now brought forward only 80% of the allocated site. Despite the smaller plot size, the current proposal contains 17 rather than the 14 units proposed for the complete site in our neighbourhood plan. As a result, parking is in tandem driveways, turning space is cramped, and parking and amenity space at the flats inappropriately positioned. The remaining 20% of the original site is accessible from the owner's driveway and could be developed separately in future, adding perhaps another 3 houses. If so, it would be below the threshold for providing an affordable element. The reason for refusal in November, the 4-bedroom house, has been replaced with a 3-bedroom house. But MSDC still propose a reduced commuted sum in lieu of a 6th affordable unit and have said that they are unable to ensure this money is spent in Balcombe towards affordable housing. As Balcombe is entirely in the AONB, affordable housing needs must be provided within the AONB for our identified local needs. The 5 affordable units are 1 or 2 bedroom flats and do not, as stated, provide for a broad range of housing needs. The MSDC housing officer has highlighted in both her responses that each flat must have its own private garden, often neglected in development of affordable housing, yet the proposal retains a communal area. Disabled parking for the accessible ground floor flat should also be provided. These larger spaces are not shown on the current plan. Regarding the car park, the Parish Council have made all parties aware that they will not accept the current car park arrangements. Access to the car park running past the houses and flats via a single entrance to the road is not practical or acceptable. We need the car park to be visible from the road to encourage use. Sussex Police have worded their concerns around security and visibility even more strongly in response to this application. We need to reduce disturbance to the flats from vehicles accessing the car park, and the ownership and management of the car park area must be independent of any ongoing commitment to a residential management company. To facilitate this, the Parish Council have committed to buy a ransom strip of land from West Sussex County Council to enable direct access from Haywards Road to the village car park. The legal transfer is currently progressing. West Sussex Highways advised for a second entrance has been sought by the Parish Council and was favourable. In constructive dialogue this month, Shanley have again committed to the Parish Council that when they gain permission for the site, they will submit a revised application for 2 entrances. However, that is not what is presented today. The car park issued was discussed at length at the Planning Committee last November. Disappointingly, there has been no further dialogue between MSDC planners and the Parish Council since November. However, 2 days ago, they confirmed the car park arrangements will need to be discussed with and approved by the Parish Council, as well as MSDC and the developer, before the S1 agreement is signed. This is very welcome news, and we very much hope that going forward, the Parish Council are given the necessary support by MSDC, West Sussex County Council and Shanley to achieve our aim of a safe and secure car park that can be managed independently with its own discrete access at the southeastern corner of the plot, fulfilling the village need.
Thank you very much. Okay, if you'd like to, we've got another speaker, so if you'd like to, and move while the chair is sanitised. Thank you. Hello, you're Mr. Mark Hendy. Can you tell us who you're speaking on behalf of, please?
Limited.
Okay,
The
thank you.
applicant.
And you're familiar with this system that I explained earlier?
Yeah, yeah. I
Okay,
spoke
so you have
at
3
the last
minutes,
meeting, yeah.
and the first minute would be timed. Continue when ready, please.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of the applicant in support of this planning application. Following the decision of the Planning Committee to refuse planning permission for our previous scheme for this site, we have taken on board the comments and addressed the sole reason for refusal on housing mix. Accordingly, this planning application omits the 4-bed house, and the proposed mix is now fully in accordance with Policy 2I of the Balcombe Parish Neighbourhood Plan. The removal of the larger 4-bed house type has allowed the row of houses at plots 13 to 17 to be more widely spaced. This has improved the layout to create a more spacious arrangement of these houses. Aside from the built and landscaped aspects, this proposal will also provide financial contributions for new social and transport infrastructure under the terms of a Section 106 agreement. Your officers have advised that planning permission be granted, and we ask the committee to support this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would you like to vacate the chair? We have another speaker. While it's sanitised, please. What's her name? Good afternoon. You're speaking on, your parish councillor, speaking on ward councillor. So you do have unlimited time, but I would ask you to be brief, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman and fellow councillors, and I will be very brief. I really just wanted to make a couple of observations. Welcomed the changes that have been made in the light of the previous objections and the removal of the 4-bedroom house, but really just wanted to note that perhaps 2-bedroom houses might have been something worthy of consideration as an opportunity for people to downsize, perhaps older people, and to stay in the area. And that there are 2-bedroom flats and 1-bedroom flats and shared amenity spaces, but that in light of what happened during the pandemic and the clear link between mental health and access to outdoor space, that private outdoor space, perhaps in the form of balconies, could also have been considered. That's really all I wanted to say. This is my maiden speech, so I just wanted to share some thoughts, and thank you for allowing me to do that.
Thank you. Your comments are always welcome. Thank you. If you'd like to vacate your seat, we do have another ward councillor to speak. It's just a slight pause while the speaker's chair is sanitised. you very much. And we have the ward member, Councillor Gary Marsh, speaking now on behalf of Balcombe Parish Council. And as a ward member, he has unlimited time. But again, as you well know, as Chairman of Planning, I would ask him to be brief. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, fellow councillors. Members, as outlined by the officer, the reasons to refuse have been removed. And I thank Shanley for removing the 4-bedroom house to 3-bedroom, now policy compliant with the plan, neighbourhood plan that is. Basically what I wanted to mention today is my support, because there was a great debate about the second exit onto the Haywards Heath Road for the car park. As you heard from Balcombe Parish Council and the commitment that we've received from the officers, that that is now likely to proceed, subject to you voting for this today. So if that's the case, I'd like to, again, thank all concerned, the Parish Council, Shanley and the officers to making this happen. I'd like to thank the County Council for facilitating this strip of land. But the other thing I want to mention as well is the Section 106 money, which again was a reason the Section 106 agreement wasn't signed. I understand that's not going to happen this time. It's just that I would like to put on record that I would like, subject to your committee, Chairman, that the money is allocated as is an and/or, and I would like it to. There is a great need for a skateboard parking in the village, so I'd like money to go for that. And I will be most upset if the money supplied for our cemetery is to upgrade a footpath, which is County Council's responsibility. Other than that, there are no other reasons for not to allow this to go through, and I fully support the recommendation. Thank you, Chairman. I won't take up your time any longer.
Thank you very much, Councillor Marsh. Before I go to the debate, Joanne needs to clarify a couple of points, I believe.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to clarify, the Parish Council would not be party to the Section 106. If the application were approved, there is a clause within the Section 106 that requires a specification on the car park to be submitted to the District Council in consultation with the Parish Council, which would be required. I'd just also like to reiterate that the second entrance raised by the Parish Council is not what is being put forward in this scheme. It would need a separate planning application, which would be considered on its own merits. We are only considering this application in front of us with this access.
Thank you very much. Yes, exactly a point I was going to bring up. But I will open this up to members, but the real reason that is here and it's up for approval was that the 4-bedroom house has been removed. It is now a 3-bedroom house. There's no other reasons to refuse it other than that on the previous application, and it would be quite unreasonable to refuse it now that has been addressed. But I will open that up to members if they have any questions. Councillor Coote.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, as that is the only problem that you had the last time, Chairman, I was going to move as recommended.
Thank you, Councillor Coote. Do I have any other? Councillor Band.
Thank you, Chairman. A couple of points I'd like to clarify, if I may. One's a search. The road, as far as I can see, and I know I am guilty, I wasn't able to actually attend the site visit, so kind of profound apologies for that. So, but I am familiar with the site. And both of the entrances I mentioned seem to actually front quite a narrow road with speed humps, which are there for a very good reason. But in the mornings and in the afternoons, it's around school pick-up and drop-off time, or drop-off and pick-up time, that's congested with kind of traffic backing up on the Haywards Heath Road, back to and through the roundabout at the Half Moon and back towards Haywards Heath. That is a concern because this development is going to add to that problem, particularly if the entrance and exit goes out between parked cars and can't move either direction because it's actually locked up in both directions with traffic. We need a more robust traffic enforcement scheme along both sides of that road to prevent parking between, shall we say, 8:30 and 9:30 and 2:30 and 3:30 or whatever the times are. And I would like to seriously see that adopted. The question was raised regarding disabled parking. And I've got to read through and I can't find that. And I would like that nailed down if we do approve this, to make certain there is actually provision for a designated space on that site.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Brennan. The questions you've raised, especially on highways, well, this has been looked at by highways and there's no objection. And I'll just remind you that it would be unreasonable to refuse this application on any other grounds than the removal of the 4-bedroom house to a 3-bedroom house.
Thank you, Chairman.
Would you like to come in on that?
And just to clarify the points raised by Councillor Laband, the access onto Haywards Heath Road has previously been considered acceptable as part of the application. The Highways Authority has considered the application, and a road safety audit has also been provided as part of the scheme, and it's considered that the access and entrance is considered acceptable. With the village car park provided as part of the site, hopefully that would prevent some parking on Haywards Heath Road during the school times, school drop-offs, because hopefully some people would park there. But like I said, Highways raised no objection. Under condition 21, which requires the specifications of the car parking, there is a section on there about disabled parking spaces to be provided as well within a plan as part of it.
Thank you. Councillor Whittaker.
Thank you, Chairman. I think the site is fantastic. What a joy it is to see people working together, all the stakeholders working together. Councillor Marsh is a very, very experienced councillor of this district council. It's fantastic to hear his really positive comments. We've got the applicant here, we've got the parish council, which I always take great stock in to make their comments. You know, and I think it's terrific. So I'm fully supportive of it. So thank you to everybody involved.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bates.
Yes. Okay? Right. When it's gone back off again? Okay, right, thank you, sorry. Yeah, I use the road quite often. I have to encounter the speed humps and the school parking. But I am concerned about this talk about an extra access to the site. Well, I'm sure I'm speaking into it. I'm not happy with the fact that we're going to approve a planning application with one entrance to the site, and then suddenly another one's going to spring up where it seems to me there are car parking there at the moment, and therefore I think this whole thing needs to be looked at again, and I think you need to defer this application until we see a proposal which shows the two entrances to the site. I mean, it's not going against the housing mix. I'm quite happy with the previous one or this one. But, well, we've got a planning application showing one entrance and somebody's talking about another entrance.
Yeah. Can I just say...
I think we should defer it until we get the scheme that people wish to see.
Well, thank you, Councillor Bates. For a start, the first entrance into the housing and the car park, that's already been approved. Highways are quite happy with that, and there was no objection raised to that. The second entrance, proposed second entrance into the car park, a separate entrance, that is, we're not looking at that in this application. That would be come in under a separate planning application. Yeah, thank you. So I hope that answers your question. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman. I've noted in the press that Borkham is an area in Mid Sussex where the cost of market housing is one of the highest in the district. Hopefully for development, I'm wanting houses in the market sector which are affordable to local residents. Obviously, having sort of smaller houses is welcome, but there's no guarantee that some of these houses won't be extended in due course. So a 3-bedroom house could be extended to a 4-bedroom, unless we have some strict arguments on overdevelopment if any sort of planning application comes in for extension to some of these properties. So what's the sort of view on overdevelopment if any extension is decided on any of these properties?
That would have to come in under a planning application, if that were to be the case. I have Councillor Coote. Before I come back to Councillor Coote, I'll come to Councillor Eves, as she hasn't spoken yet. Members, I don't want to drag...
Can I just say, I wanted to make it quite clear, speech, that we are here to discuss one matter and one matter only. We cannot take the rest of this into consideration. It is the fact that whether we agree or not on the housing mix, and that is what we should be voting on, and I recommended that.
Yes, you
we
did.
save ourselves an awful lot of time discussing things which are of no avail.
I quite agree with you, Councillor Coote, and I've already mentioned that, and I was just about to say before Councillor Eves spoke, we must remind ourselves that it would be totally unreasonable to refuse this application because the 4-bedroom house has been removed and the 3-bedroom house is in place, and that accords with the Balcombe Neighbourhood Plan. So, Councillor Eves, I'd like members to have their say, but I'll let you speak, and that will be the last question I'm taking.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. Well, I just feel that it's unreasonable to put that restriction, straitjacketing this committee by saying that to us. Why has it gone to this committee just because now we've got a 3-bedroom house that can be extended instead of a 4-bedroom house? The whole thing is a nonsense. So I do object to not being allowed to say what I want to say. And what I want to say is, for example, that 4 of these houses have southwest-facing roofs and there's not going to be any solar, which is annoying. And the second exit is, again, ridiculous. So why would we say yes to this? I agree with Councillor Bates. Why would we say yes when the second exit isn't there? Let's wait and see it first.
Well, yeah, thank you, Councillor Eves. That was something that wasn't brought up in consideration to the initial refusal. The only refusal was for the 4-bedroom house. That's now been rectified. So I see no other speakers. So I'm going to Councillor Coote, that has approved this, proposed this application. May I have a seconder, please? Councillor Whittaker. Can we now go to the vote? In buttons on your screen. Oh, sorry, beg your pardon. Before I go to the vote, the recommendations. Recommendation A, it is recommended that planning permission be approved subject to the completion of satisfactory S106 legal agreement to secure infrastructure contributions and affordable housing and the conditions set in Appendix A. Recommendation B, it is recommended that if the applicants have not submitted a satisfactory signed planning obligation securing the necessary infrastructure payments and affordable housing by the 24th of May 22, it is recommended that permission be refused at the discretion of the Divisional Lead for Planning and Economy for the following reasons. The application fails to comply with policies DB20, DB31 and Mid Sussex Plan in respect to the infrastructure and affordable housing required to serve the development. Okay, we go to the vote now. So if you would like to cast your vote, please. To the legal officer to...
7 votes for the application, 1 vote against the application, and 1 abstention. So 2 abstentions. So the
Application is approved.
Thank you very much. So that application is approved. I'll go to item 7 on the agenda. Questions pursuant to Council Procedural Rule 10.2, due notice of which has been given. I have none, and I'll close this meeting at 3:35. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending.